With the 2024 Euros being just around the corner, I thought it would be fun to get us all in the mood by taking a look back at the most iconic moments in the tournament's history. The best and worst moments for each and every team at the Euros this year. So without wasting any time, let's get right into it. Starting in Group A, we have our hosts and three-time champions Germany. And I'm not gonna lie, this was a hard choice right off the bat. Since they've played so many editions of the tournament, it was super difficult to choose one worst and best moment. But for the worst, I've gone with them finishing last in the group at the Euro 2000, with only one goal scored, and that being against Romania. Honestly, tell me a worse feeling as a fan than not getting any knockout round games to watch, especially when you're a nation like Germany. Honorable mention also to losing the semifinals versus Netherlands at home in 1988. Now, for their best moment, it has to be their win versus Czech Republic in 1996, an extra time golden goal winner from Bierhoff to crown them European champions for the third time. You cannot match that feeling of golden goal anymore. Next, we have Scotland, who will make their fourth appearance at the competition. Their best moment comes from the 96 Euros when they got a draw against the Netherlands, meaning they could have a chance at progressing if they beat Switzerland, and McCoist fired home against the Swiss to do just that. Unfortunately, their worst moment came in the same tournament against England, when McAllister missed a penalty to tie the match. The implication of this miss meant that even though they beat the Swiss 1-0, they would need England to beat the Netherlands 4-0. And remarkably, after 62 minutes, England had done just that, only for them to concede one measly goal and Scotland miss out on their first knockout berth ever, painfully. Moving on to Hungary, who are my dark horse for the tournament personally, their worst moment probably has to be agonizingly losing in extra time in 1964 to Spain during the semifinals, as they would then repeat the same pattern 8 years later, losing to the Soviets in the semifinals again in 1972, and then fail to qualify until 2016, where they would probably have their best moment, which was tying 3-3 against Portugal in a thriller of a match and finishing top of their group. Then we have Switzerland, who are looking to make their third appearance in a row this year to finish off Group A. Their worst moment is definitely losing at home to Turkey in the pouring rain on an absolute waterlogged pitch in the last seconds of the game, resulting in them missing out on the knockout rounds in front of their home crowd. In stark contrast, their best moment, hands down, has to be beating France on penalties after coming back from 3-1 down in 2021. I mean, at one point, the Swiss were up 1-0 and they get a penalty. They miss, and then just 4 minutes later, they find themselves 2-1 down. Then Pogba scores a banger. Now it's 3-1. But then, Seferovic heads one back in the 81st minute, and they get the equalizer in the 90th minute. This was an absolutely iconic game. Alright, let's now take a look at Group B, the group of death, with Spain, Croatia, Italy, and Albania. Starting with Spain, it's without a doubt gotta be the 4-0 win against Italy in the 2012 final, making them the only ever back-to-back champions, and, including the World Cup title in between in 2010, one of the best international teams in history. And an honorable mention to Torres' goal against Germany in 2008. Their worst moment? Probably losing to their Iberian rivals Portugal in 2004, in turn knocking them out at the group stage. Another honorable mention also for losing to Italy in 2021 on penalties. Next, we have Croatia. In 2008, they finished top of their group above Germany and found themselves in the quarterfinals against Turkey. And Croatians were jumping out of their seats when they scored in the 119th minute of extra time. only for the Turks to equalize in the dying seconds of the game. They would then lose in penalties, with a young Modric and Rakitic both missing. Drama to the highest degree. Now, their best moment was probably beating Spain in 2016 to finish atop of the group. Payback to the team that had knocked them out in 2012 in their last group stage game. A group that, crazily enough, is basically identical to this year's group, bar Ireland. Now let's talk about Italy. The Azzurri have also had too many iconic moments to choose from, but their worst moment, hands down, has to be losing in the final against France in 2000 to David Trezeguet's golden goal, a rule that would be abolished the next tournament. Honorable mention also to getting knocked out of the group stage in 2004 with a stacked team after finishing with 5 points. Best moment? Without a doubt, their triumph of the 2021 Euro Cup against England at Wembley Stadium. To go down in the second minute of the game and then find a way with Bonucci's goal, and don't forget Chiellini's foul on Saka, man was not about to lose this match. Also, honorable mention, let's not forget Balotelli's goal and celebration versus Germany in 2012. Now, Albania. They make their second ever appearance this year, and their worst ever moment probably has to be being placed in this group. Nah, but they'll definitely be looking to break some hearts this year for sure. Their hearts, though, were definitely broken in 2016 when they came up against a crazy good France squad. They had held them at 0-0 the entire game until 2 added time goals dismantled them in the dying embers of the game. The worst part of this being, a draw might have been able to progress them through the third place spot, since, in probably their best moment ever, they beat Romania to win their first ever game at the competition. Coming up next, we have Group C, where we start with Slovenia, who just ruined Portugal's perfect 11 wins out of 11 recently, and their best moment has to be scoring 3 goals against Yugoslavia, 9 years after they gained independence from them at their first tournament ever. Their worst moment? Unfortunately, the same match where they lost their 3-0 lead in only just 6 minutes and ended the game 3-3 against their former occupiers, resulting in them losing out on a chance at a knockout spot. With Denmark, it's probably the most clear-cut out of them all for best moment. One of the greatest moments in the tournament's history as the Danes lift the trophy in 1992 after taking down France, the Netherlands, and Germany. This is probably one of the best underdog stories in football history, as they only qualified to the tournament because of the Yugoslav Wars. Yep, Slovenia, who we just mentioned, is one of the reasons Denmark was able to have completed this iconic moment. In terms of worst moments, I've got to say Eriksen's heart attack at the 2021 Euros. I watched this live, and it was probably one of the scariest moments in a football match I've ever seen. To have your star player almost die on the field is a traumatic experience, but to still make it to the semifinals after that is an empowering story as well. Next, we have Serbia, who have finally qualified for their first European Championship as an independent nation. Their best moment has to be their 3-1 win versus Montenegro, which solidified their spot in the tournament this year. As for their worst, it would probably be losing 1-0 to Slovenia in 2011, which prevented them from qualifying for the 2012 Euros, when all they needed was just a tie. Alright, and last but definitely not least, we have England, who are one of the heavy favorites this year for sure. England have had so many unfortunate moments at this tournament that it was almost impossible to choose a definite one. But I'm going to go with Phil Neville giving away the penalty in the 89th minute against Romania in 2000 to cost them the game and their spot in the knockout rounds in the worst way possible. It was honestly just such a bad tackle, I still can't understand the loss of discipline here. Now, in terms of best moments, It's most likely their complete demolition of the Netherlands 4-1 at home in 1996. Shearer and Sheringham both bagged 2 and contributed to probably what is England's greatest team performance in their history. Alright, now that wraps up Group C. So let's move on to Group D, which, in my opinion, is the second strongest group this year. Poland start us off here, and for their best moment, we go to 2016, where they had probably their best team of all time, with most of their players being in their prime. They beat Switzerland on penalties after conceding this iconic late equalizer by Shaqiri, putting them into the quarterfinals, the farthest they've ever made it in the Euros, which is also, in turn, also going to be their worst moment, losing in penalties as well to Portugal and missing a chance to play against a Welsh team in the semis, where they might have had a solid chance at a final appearance. Moving on to the Netherlands, a team who haven't quite been themselves for the past 10 years, but are looking to have a strong tournament this year. Their worst moment, and trust me, there were a lot of bad moments to choose from here, is going to have to be their 2008 loss to Russia in the quarterfinals during extra time after steamrolling Italy, France, and Romania during the group stage. This team had a stacked attack in midfield and could have gone much further. Now, for their best moment, it's without a doubt Van Basten's iconic volley in '88 versus the Soviets to win them their first and only ever international title. A team that definitely deserves more on the international stage. Next, we have Austria in Group D, who I have to say have been absolutely flying recently in their performances, including beating Germany and Turkey 6-1, albeit friendly matches. But for their best moment, it's definitely their win against Ukraine in 2021 to secure their first ever knockout round appearance. Their worst moment also comes from that same knockout appearance in 2021. After holding the eventual champions Italy until extra time, they lost 2-1, and not to mention the pain Austrians must have felt when this potential game-winning goal from Arnautovic was disallowed for being offside. Continuing on, we talk about the French now. A team that has more depth than the Mariana Trench. Their worst moment, arguably, is their 2008 Euro campaign, finishing bottom of the group with Italy, Netherlands, and Romania, being knocked out in the group stage. Although there are many honorable mentions like losing at home to the final in Portugal in 2016, losing to Greece in the quarterfinals in 2004, and losing 5-4 in 1960 at home in the semifinals. On the contrary, they have one of the most iconic moments of all time, being the previously mentioned David Trezeguet's golden goal versus Italy in the Euro 2000 final, as their best moment. Again, you cannot match the feeling of a golden goal in extra time, especially in the final. Moving along again, we have Group E. And starting with Belgium, I'm gonna have to say their worst moment is losing 3-1 to Wales in 2016 in the quarterfinals. This Belgium lineup had the potential to finally prove themselves by winning something, but they surprisingly fell to the Welsh. Also, honorable mention for losing in the 1980 final against West Germany. Their best moment? Probably finishing in third place at their tournament debut in 1972 as hosts, while beating the Italians in the quarterfinals as well. That's a pretty impressive achievement for a first tournament. Then we have Slovakia, who've had an impressive qualifying campaign. By the way, I'm not counting Czechoslovakia's success for the Czechs or Slovakia. But anyways, Slovakia's worst moment is losing 5-0 to Spain in 2021, conceding 2 own goals to add to the humiliation. Not a great feeling for them. But for their best, I'm going to have to say their 0-0 draw with England in 2016, a hard-fought battle that earned them their first knockout round appearance. Although they did end up losing 3-0 to Germany in the round of 16, it just feels way better to at least make the knockout rounds. After them, we've got Romania, who I personally think are going to make some sort of upset this year, impressively finishing atop of their qualification group above Switzerland. For their worst moment, it has to be losing 1-0 to Albania in 2016, a win that could have gave them a spot in the next round, but instead, they gave Albania their first ever win at the Euros. Romania has gotten knocked out every single time at the group stage, except for what is 100% their best and most iconic moment, beating England 3-2 in the 89th minute to progress in a group including Germany and Portugal at the Euro 2000. Moving on, we've got Ukraine, who qualified from a late goal by Mudryk in the playoffs against Iceland. Their worst moment was finishing bottom of the group in 2016 with 0 points and 0 goals scored, specifically losing to Northern Ireland 2-0. Their best moment would have to be Dobrovic's 121st minute winner in 2021 against Sweden to make it to the quarterfinals. Absolute pandemonium. Honorable mention though for Shevchenko's double to beat Sweden in front of their home crowd in 2012 at their first ever Euro match. And now the last group, Group F, where we'll start with Turkey. Their best moment is going to have to be their win in 2008 during the quarterfinal match versus Croatia. If you remember from earlier, this was discussed as Croatia's worst moment. Fenerbahce striker Semih Şentürk scored to equalize in extra time in the 121st minute, sending the Turks to penalties where they would triumph to challenge Germany for a spot in the final, which is on the contrary their worst moment. A last-second goal from Philipp Lahm destroyed their hopes at a chance to fight for a possible European title for the nation of Turkey. Next up, we have newcomers Georgia. Since this is their first tournament as an independent nation, they don't really have any iconic moments, but I'll make an exception and include qualifiers for them just like I did with Slovenia. Their best moment obviously has to be their win on penalties against Greece to qualify for their first international tournament. Their worst moment is probably going to be losing to Spain with the dreaded 7-1 Brazil scoreline. That's unfortunate. Then we have Portugal, who have come out of qualifying with an impressive 10 wins out of 10. Their worst moment, without a shadow of a doubt, has to be their 2004 loss to Greece in the final, in front of their home fans. This is also probably one of the greater underdog stories other than Denmark's 92 win, and in my opinion, the most iconic moment of all European Championship history. Portugal's best moment? Again, an easy one, Eder's extra time goal against France in 2016 to hand them their first ever international title. And to end things off in this group, we have Czech Republic. Their worst moment came at the hands of Turkey, who were in this group. In 2008, they were winning 2-0 in the 75th minute, but then shambolically fell apart in 14 minutes to the Turks, in turn losing out on a spot in the knockout rounds. Definitely an interesting revenge story brewing here, but let's go on to their best moment. Definitely beating France in 1996 in the semifinals on penalties in their first ever tournament after splitting from Czechoslovakia, making it all the way to the final. Who knows? Maybe they can do it again this year. And that's going to be it for every single team at the 2024 edition of the Euros Best and Worst Iconic Moments. Let me know if you think any of them should be different, and as always, see you next time.